place on your Echo device where you can watch and listen to live shows and chat with hosts in real time. I'm Anthony Davis. This is The Anthony Davis Show, and you can catch me here every weekday, Monday through Friday, between 9 a.m. Pacific, that's 12 o'clock Eastern, and 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern. Got it right for the first time. Oh, and 11 o'clock Central. No, I don't know. Don't ask me about sound. I'm still working on that one. So how do you get involved with the show, you may ask? I hear you ask. Well, it's easy. Just send a message. You can ask questions, chime in on what we're talking about, or anything else you want to send our way. And if you can see me right now, then you are listening on an Echo show or watching on an Echo show or maybe watching on a Fire TV. Well, the magic word there is say. So just wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message, and that'll come through to me. If you're just listening right now on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv and click join the chat. There you go. Easy. We've got so much to chat about today. I'm very pleased you've showed up. We're going to look at racism after a state inquiry has found police in Minneapolis have engaged in a pattern of race discrimination for at least the past decade. I'll take a look at some of those sad findings from the 72-page report. I have actually spent the evening reading it. So there'll be some detail there that we can look at together. Also, Elon Musk's rocket company Spacex launched 4 more astronauts into orbit on the Crew Dragon capsule yesterday. The crew includes Jessica Watkins, the first black woman to serve on an extended mission on the International Space Station. So who is Jessica Watkins? We'll look into the life of the young NASA astronaut, geologist, aquanaut, and former international rugby player. And on the education front, Republicans are panicking over the prospect of Biden forgiving student debt. Well, who else is going to pay for it? You know, you spend $800 billion on the military. You can spend a few billion on students, surely. And finally, on this day in 1926, the author Harper Lee was born in Alabama. We'll look at her life and literary legacy, including how the moral lessons of To Kill a Mockingbird endure today. There we go. That's how it's looking. We've got morning papers to look through as well. So many newspapers here. A couple of no names have jumped in. Stacey's with us from Texas. If you want to change your name to a name, you can do that. Just tell your device to change the name. Okay, let's jump into the morning papers. We're going to start with the Daily Sun from Arizona. They lead this morning with council grapples with new applicants. A list of candidates down to 6 to fill Daggett position. This is Flagstaff City Council. Had a special work session on Monday to review applicants for the vacant seat left by the resignation of the Vice Mayor Becky Daggett. So if you are interested in that position, let me know, I'll let them know, and then you never know. A photograph of some kids in, what is this? This is the opening day of Flagstaff High School powwow, and children wearing Native American costumes and dancing at the opening day. It's the Native American Club at the school. They led a dance of honor around the school gymnasium during a powwow that they organized together. The 2-day event featured vendors and dancers who came from across the Southwest. Isn't that cute? Protection sought for Pinion Jay. This is a little bird called the jay. You may know the blue jay, for example. Well, this is pinion nuts. Collecting them has been a tradition for Native American and Hispanic families in the southwestern U.S. for generations. But environmentalists are concerned that without the pinion jay, a very social bird that essentially plants the next generation of trees by stashing away the seeds, it's possible the pinion forests of New Mexico, Nevada, and other western states could face another reproductive hurdle in the face of climate change, persistent drought, and more severe wildfires. Yeah, that would be a shame. We don't want to see I think they've only 60% can be found of the remaining population in New Mexico and Nevada. Also, finally on this newspaper, Russia and the US carried out an unexpected prisoner exchange in a time of high tensions. Trading on Wednesday, a Marine veteran jailed by Moscow for a convicted Russian drug trafficker serving a long prison sentence in America. So there we go. There's another one of these prisoner swaps. It very much is like the movies. You know, I was reading yesterday about the parents of this guy describing the transfer, and it happened on an airport in Turkey. And the two planes, land in Turkey, and then, they both open their doors at the same time, and they walk the prisoner to the other plane and vice versa. And it's just like in a film, It's just interesting that Turkey was the chosen airport. I suppose it's maybe not quite equidistant, but it's, it's a kind of neutral space, isn't it? Like a DMZ. Okay, let's jump to the Daily Star now for Arizona. They lead this morning with Southwestern fire crews prepare for dry T-storms. Yes, another climate change story that doesn't mention climate change. From the southwestern U.S. to the southern high plains, forecasters are warning that more strong winds and low humidity will challenge fire crews over the coming days. More strong winds and low humidity levels are on tap for the coming days, prompting firefighters in drought-stricken New Mexico to cut away brush and burn out any extra fuel in an effort to keep the flames of what's become the largest wildfire burning in the U.S. from reaching homes that are still in its path. There we go. So, no mention of the climate, but still mention of everything being burned in sight. What needs to happen for people to go, this is climate change? Like your whole city burns down, you have no possessions left, you've literally got to start all over again. And you're like, no, I'm still not sure it's climate change. I mean, what needs to happen? Doesn't make any sense to me. Did you only watch Just Look Up last night for the first time, Carla? I mean, there was a national conversation going on about 3 months ago about that about that movie. But can you see the impact? I spoke to some people and they didn't realize it was about climate change. It's like there's so many metaphors in that film, Don't Look Up, on the Netflix. It really is a very, very good movie. Yeah. It was so many reminders of the previous administration. But conceptually, Don't Look Up, it's so clever. It really is so clever. Because it wasn't just a metaphor for climate change, it was also a metaphor for democracy. The fall of democracy. And which, as you know, has already happened. So, it's just life goes on, Life goes on. The Elon Musk guy was played by the British actor. I didn't like his acting and his false teeth, but I guess it was all in the style, wasn't it? It was all in the style. That basically the asteroid is coming to Earth and it's gonna destroy the planet, and they work out that there might be some money to be made by mining the asteroid before it hits the Earth. They might make some money. I mean, the irony of this, it's genius, isn't it? So they start mining the asteroid. I can't actually remember what happens at the end. Oh, no, I can. I need to rewatch it. I only saw it once. That's one of these films you should watch multiple times. Wouldn't you say? I'm sure there's so many extra little things in there that we could, see. Little nuggets that they place. A story in the newspaper, worried about aging at home. It says the older you are, the less you fret about aging in place. It's a key insight from a new poll which found the US adults aged 65 or older feel much more prepared to age in their own homes than those who are mostly still in the final stretches of their working years. The poll also documented greater insecurity around aging in place for older Black and Latino Americans, and likely result of a deep-rooted wealth gap that markedly favors white people. Aging in one's own home or with family or a close friend is a widely held aspiration, with 88% of adults and 50 and over saying it's their goal in an earlier poll. I'd be very happy to age at home. I'm quite happy to start now, to be honest. Put me in a chair and let me age at home. It's all I care about, as long as I've got the TV and the high-speed broadband. Thank you to you for joining in. So many people messaging. Certain Quagga is in. Meow. How you been? I've been good. Thank you. Great to see you. Welcome. Press the subscribe button, bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Hello has joined us. Stacey's with us. Innes has popped in. Innes, hi. first time on the show, great to see you. If you would like to press the subscribe button, I think you'll enjoy that enormously. You know, the old subscribey, you know, the subscribers. Okay, let's have a little look what we've got here. Yeah, by the way, if you'd like to send me a message and you're not subscribed, you can still do that. You can see me right now, then you're watching on an Echo show or Fire TV. Well, the magic word is say, so wake her up, say the word say, and then your message. And if you're just listening right now on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv and click join the chat. Easy. Okay, let's go to the newspapers again. I think we've got the Los Angeles Times next. Let's have a look together, shall we? Yes, we do. The LA Times. Look at that. Photograph of residents helping an emergency worker transport a man to an ambulance after Russian bombardment in Kharkiv, Ukraine. The city hemmed in by Russian forces was rocked by explosions after midnight. There's no respite there at the moment. You know, it's like we're not talking about it as much, but it's still happening day after day. Moscow cuts off gas to two allies of Kiev. This is Ukraine yesterday turned off the natural gas spigot to the frontline Eastern European states of Poland and Bulgaria, signaling its willingness to take sharp economic aim at those who aid Ukraine. Russian forces, meanwhile, trained shells on eastern Ukraine as they pressed ahead with the devastating 2-month-old invasion. Addressing the first such supply disruption since the war's start, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov strongly hinted that other European economies may be next, and he told reporters on Wednesday that if some customers decline to pay under the new system, which is rubles, Russia has instituted, then, of course, they could face the same treatment. I mean, look, let's be honest, everyone's going to get cut off. And you know something? Fine. Shouldn't be using gas anyway. You've had literally 30 years warning. You've had 30 years warning to stop using gas. So just stop using gas. This is the time. You know, it's like there are so many alternatives. There's so many alternatives. You do not need it. You don't need it. You just have to think a little differently. That's all. Just change your thinking. People are lazy, you know. I have a short temper for it because I just feel like it's not like, oh, this is like, oh, we didn't know. It's like you have known for 30 years. There's a documentary on PBS at the moment called, it's about the oil business, you know, the energy companies. And I think it's called something Big Oil. And it's a 3-part documentary. I just watched the first one. And it talks about how the oil industry covered up the climate crisis. They basically took control of it by employing researchers and scientists and chemists, and they did their own research, and they published their own internal documents to say that the planet was heating up, and that this was very destructive to the planet, and that by mining fossil fuels, it was making it worse. So they did their own research, and then they hid it. And they started putting out propaganda to suggest that actually it didn't affect the planet. So we've known about this for decades. But this documentary on PBS is brilliant. I'll just look it up and tell you what it is. PBS, I think it's a Frontline documentary. Here we go. It's called The Power of Big Oil. The Power of Big Oil. It's a Frontline documentary. Episodes 1, 2, and 3. Number 3 just dropped. Number 3 is dropping on May the 3rd. It says, tracing the fossil fuel industry's history of delaying action on climate change and the ongoing attempts to hold big oil accountable. I have to tell you, it is brilliant. You know, it's just brilliant. So I really recommend this because the analysis and the investigation that they do is just amazing. You know, they're very, very good. Public broadcasting services, obviously, but I mean, it's a very, very well researched and beautiful, beautiful documentary. Very well made. Here we go. Carla, I just sent it to you so you can watch it in your own time. I think it'd be interesting to know if you can actually watch this outside of the US or not. You know? Interesting to know if it actually works outside of the United States. With less water, Southland will see a browner landscape. Officials are imposing limits that could get even more strict. This is millions of Southern California residents are bracing for less water and many brown lawns as drought and climate change leave a large swathe of the region with a growing water shortage. In a remarkable indication of drought severity, officials within the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California have declared a first-of-its-kind action limiting outdoor water use to 1 day a week for nearly 6 million residents. Now, this is the first time they've done this. Now, if this is not proof of how climate change is going to affect you, you know, you can't wash your car, you can't water your lawn, it's important. You have to understand this. Gloomy outlook on race persists. Poll shows 68% of city residents believe another uprising is likely within 5 years. Yes, Kenyatta Booker was born the year before 1992, the uprising that followed the acquittal of police officers caught on video beating Rodney King. She grew up in a home where she absorbed the history of the images. Today, she considers those 6 riotous days a starting point for black voices to be heard, though the violence also put black people in a bad light, she said. After the police killing of George Floyd 2 years ago, she was encouraged by what she saw as the largely peaceful protests, but ask her about the prospect of another riot in Los Angeles and her optimism fades. Is it possible? Hell yeah, she says. She's a college student and elementary school teacher who lives in South LA. She noted that too many police interactions turn violent and too few consequences are enforced. Cody's joined us. Hello, Cody. Welcome. Nice to see you. Ines is here. Stacey's here. Lots of no names. You can change your name to a name if you want to. Certain Quagger, Disastrous Condor. Great to have you all on the show today. We're going to be looking at this report out of Minneapolis shortly that talks about systemic racism within the police service, which bearing responsibility, I guess, for the execution of George Floyd and all the others, you know. Attorney General faces election fight. This is the most contentious and closely watched California election in 2022. It's likely to be the race for Attorney General, in which voters will choose in June for the Liberal incumbent who was appointed to the job last year. 3 unheralded challengers and an openly gay career prosecutor whose campaign could hinge on the public's new fears about crime. So there we go. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Okay, sticker shock sends Californians inland. This is moving to Lake Arrowhead. Wasn't always part of Natalie Kamorna's plan. When the 35-year-old and her partner purchased a small cabin in the mountains 2 years ago, they intended to use it as an investment property that they would rent out to vacationers looking for a forest escape. The couple bought the 670-square-foot home for $189,000 when the housing prices in Southern California were climbing, but before they smashed records and hit an all-time high. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it says California overall lost nearly 262,000 residents between July 1st and 2020 and July 1st, 2021. State's population shrank. Yeah. It's an exodus because of the economics. You know, it's like for years the cost of living has just gone up and wages haven't gone up, and there comes a breaking point where people are like, you know something, our quality of life, if we lived outside of the town, the city, will be so much better, and we'd be paying less. And because we're all working remotely now, it's not like you had to live in the city to get the best paying jobs. That's changed also. You can be anywhere and get the best paying job. So it's very interesting to me that, you know, it doesn't surprise me that people are fleeing Los Angeles. It doesn't surprise me at all. You know, they said we were paying all this money to be at the center of things, but everything was shut down and there was no center anymore, they said. And looking at homes in LA, it was ridiculous. Even if we could afford a $900,000 home, we didn't want that. We didn't want a mortgage that was $5,000 a month. Across the state, Californians in search of more open space and a sense of community and affordable housing are trading city life in major urban areas such as the Bay Area or Los Angeles for suburban and rural communities. A growing number of families have moved inland over the past few years, but the migratory shift grew even more pronounced amid the pandemic as the barriers to moving dropped for many in large cities, spurred by a newfound ability to work remotely. So, yeah. It says both Los Angeles and San Francisco saw sizable declines in population during the first year of the pandemic, census data shows, underscoring how California's housing crisis and other demographic forces are reshaping two of its largest cities. Okay, so there we go. That's the Los Angeles Times for you this morning. Flaky Lobster's just joined us from Illinois. Hello, Flaky Lobster. Welcome. Nice to see you. If you'd like to click the subscribe button, then that would be a lovely thing to do. Marvelous. Okay, let's move on a little here. Let's go to the New York Times. Russia threatens more retaliation over Ukraine aid. It says fear that war will spill over borders. Yes, this is a concern, isn't it? For 9 weeks, it says, President Biden and the Western allies have emphasized the need to keep the war on Ukraine inside Ukraine. Well, now, the fear in Washington and European capitals is the conflict may soon escalate into a wider war, spreading to neighboring states, to cyberspace, and to NATO countries, suddenly facing a Russian cutoff of gas. Over the long term, such expansion could evolve into a more direct conflict between Washington and Moscow, reminiscent of the Cold War, as each seeks to sap the other's power. In the past 3 days, the American Secretary of Defense has called for an effort to degrade the capability of the Russian military so it could not invade in other countries for years to come. The Russians have cut off gas shipments to Poland and Bulgaria, which joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, immediately denounced the move as an instrument of blackmail. Explosions have rocked a disputed area of Moldova, a natural next target for the Russians, and gas depots and even a missile factory in Russia have mysteriously caught fire or come under attack from Ukrainian forces. There's a lot happening out there, you know. There's a lot happening out there. Reverberations from the war widened yesterday, jolting energy markets and spilling across borders as Russia responded to the West's escalating arms shipments and economic penalties by halting gas supplies to 2 European nations and threatening further unspecified retaliation. So there we go. That's the New York Times. It says... New York map by Democrats rejected again. This is New York's highest court, ruled on Wednesday that Democratic leaders had violated the state constitution when it took it upon themselves to draw new congressional and state senate districts, and ordered that a court-appointed special master draft replacement lines for this year's critical midterm elections. Yes, the State Court of Appeals chided Democrats for ignoring a constitutional amendment adopted by voters in 2014 to curb political influence in the redistricting process. The amendment also created a new outside commission to guide the process. Well, what about what the Republicans are doing in Florida? Why is it one rule for them and another rule for the others? You know? And then there's an image of... two former presidents, Clinton, Obama, standing with Joe Biden. They're all very tall, these guys, you know? Clinton is enormous. I think he's 7'6". Obama is 6'12", and Joe Biden is shrinking daily. Biden looks very old compared to this. I mean, he is old, but he really, you know, when he kind of opens his eyes and looks like a little lost puppy. You know, I mean, the guy's sharp as a button, but he really does look old. And that's not healthy in politics, isn't it? Because people will use that, you know, and abuse that. Officials gathered on Wednesday to remember Madeleine Albright, the first woman to serve as the U.S. Secretary of State. Freedom has no greater champion, President Biden said. And a woman disappears in Mexico, it says, on the 13th day of searching for his missing daughter, Mario Escobar, stood outside a gas station in the choking heat, clutching flyers with her photo and the vestiges of a desperate, lingering hope. Hours later, in a wash of red and blue police lights, the hope was destroyed. Debani Escobar's body was found last Thursday night in an abandoned underground water tank on the grounds of a motel in northern Mexico that the authorities had already searched 4 different times. I mean, to lose a child in this way, you know? She was 18. She was a law student. She disappeared on the 9th of April. Sparked outrage and protests over the phenomenon that's now chillingly common in Mexico, the disappearance of women and girls all over the country. In just the last month, at least 9 other women and girls have gone missing in the greater metropolitan area of Monterrey, one of the wealthiest cities in the country. Nationwide, more than 24,000 women are missing, according to government figures. And last year, 2,800 women were reported missing, an increase of nearly 40%. I mean, really? Why would anybody live there? You know? Because they have to. License plate mismatch ends in fatal shooting. This is the story out of Grand Rapids. This is the Patrick Lyoya story, which we covered last week. It says Patrick never quite found his footing. His family fled conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. He spent nearly half his life in a refugee camp in Malawi. He dreamed of coming to America, but after arriving here, he struggled to find his place, bouncing among homes, low-wage jobs, and jail. Christopher Scher was tenacious. He stuck with the pole vault, winning a national title. He stayed with his high school sweetheart, later marrying her on a Christian mission to Kenya. He landed a job as a police officer in Grand Rapids, where he remains. The 2 men, the black driver and the white officer, crossed paths on a rainy morning this month. Officer Scher, 31, spotted Mr. Lyoya, 26, at the wheel of a silver sedan and followed in his cruiser, pulling the car over on a residential street. Mr. Lyoya, who was unarmed, stepped out of the vehicle. "What did I do wrong?" he asked. "The plate doesn't belong to the car," the officer replied. Over the next 3 minutes, a deadly encounter unfolded. Captured in videos from a passenger riding with Mr. Lyoya, a home surveillance system, and the officer's dashboard and body-worn cameras, which got turned off just before the execution happened. After a foot chase, Officer Scher pulls out his taser, firing it unsuccessfully twice. The officer then manages to get a wriggling Mr. Lyoya face down on the ground and sits on his back. I won't tell you the rest. You probably know already, but let's just say that it did not end well. And a solitary shot to the back of the head ended the life of Patrick Lyoya. So anyway, this is regarding the name of the police officer, because that's been kept secret until now. Christopher Scher is his name, and Patrick Lyoya is the name of the young man who was murdered. And you know what's really interesting about this is that, you know, it comes at a time when obviously this report from Minneapolis is out, but it comes at a time when we're looking back on George Floyd, because it's the, almost the anniversary, or I think just been the anniversary of that, of two years. And my feeling is you just would have thought that police officers know the story of George Floyd, know what happened to Derek Chauvin, and do not want to end up in jail themselves. You would have thought that that might enter their minds before they go on to execute people, because they know what they're doing. You don't sit on someone's back and shoot them in the back of the head and say it was an accident. You know? That happened. I'm Anthony Davis. This is Backchannel. We're here every weekday, Monday through Friday, from 9 till 11 Pacific. You can send me a message if you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo Show or Fire TV. The magic word is say. So wake her up. Say the word say and then your message. If you're just listening right now on an Echo speaker, you could not see me, then go to backchannel.tv and click join the chat. So that's backchannel.tv and join the chat. There you go. Easy. Lots of people joining the chat. Thank you for joining in. Stacy says, why can't those police officers just keep their tasers in and? Well, that's a very good question. I mean, it's a very good half a question. I'll be honest, my personal opinion, just my opinion, is that they actually want to kill these people. That's my opinion. So it's not a case of, I should have used the taser. They use the taser first, knowing that it's not going to work. They do that on purpose, because then it's like, but I used my taser. but they know it's not going to work, or they ensure it doesn't work. I think they actually genuinely want to murder people. I do. I personally do. You know? That's just my opinion. No facts behind it, although we are going to read shortly from the Minneapolis police report, the independent report, 72 pages of systemic racism that suggests that actually these guys know exactly what they are doing. Here on the front of the Star Tribune for this Thursday, a pattern of racism at MPD. This is what we're going to be discussing. Investigators found a decade-long pattern of racial discrimination, profiling, lack of respect and verbal abuse by Minneapolis police, with officers not disciplined for their actions. The headline information is that racial disparities in how MPD officers use force, stop, search, arrest, and cite people of color, particularly black individuals, compared to white individuals in similar circumstances. That's the pattern of discrimination. Lack of consequences. These leaders have not collectively acted with urgency or coordination. City council prosecutors noted that it can be difficult to rely on MPD officers' body-worn camera video in court because of how disrespectful and offensive the officers are. What, they can't play the tapes because of how racist these people are. MPD officers use MPD covert accounts unrelated to any actual or alleged criminal activity to gain access to black individuals' social media profiles. Yeah, they've been doing social media deception. They're basically hunting down black people to kill. And this is, it's lynching. This is something that is illegal as of 2 weeks ago. There's an anti-lynching bill now. I wonder if these police officers will come under the these kind of murders that the police take part in will come under the anti-lynching bill. I wonder if that makes it illegal, you know. Mayor wants $3 million to lead out of MPLS homes. This is the Minneapolis public school students. More than 3,000 of them who are children of color have tested positive for lead. The number of children with lead poisoning, lead out of people's homes, not lead. Lead. The number of children with lead poisoning rose 15% in 2021, the first increase in a decade, partly because families stayed home more during the pandemic. Wow. In 2021, 90 Minneapolis children tested positive for lead, and that increase came when fewer children were getting tested amid the pandemic. The mayor wants to spend $3 million of the city's remaining $43 million in federal pandemic relief money to end childhood lead poisoning in Minneapolis by 2035. So there we go. And finally, $1 million bail for a boy accused of killing a girl. A 14-year-old boy accused of murder of the 10-year-old Ileana Lily Peters appeared on Wednesday before a circuit court judge who ordered him held on $1 million cash bail. Appearing in the court via video from a juvenile detention facility, the defendant, an 8th grader and lifelong resident of Chippewa County, who lives with his mother, sat quietly next to his attorneys with his head down wearing a dark shirt. In arguing for the high bail, District Attorney Wade Newell said the boy told authorities his intention was to attack her from the get-go when he left the house with her to walk a trail. The boy told authorities that he punched her, hit her, and strangled her to the point of death. I mean, this is a child killing a child, a 14-year-old boy. I mean, it's just devastating, you know? It's just devastating that this type of crime is happening. Okay, let's move on. Find something a little bit more cheerful to talk about, other than murder and systemic racism and more murder. Well, welcome to America, you know? This is what it is. We're going to look at the racism story at the Minneapolis Police Department in more detail shortly. South Jersey Times, thousands await justice from depleted NJ judiciary. This is New Jersey. More than 7,000 defendants are languishing in New Jersey jails. Thousands of victims await justice as state courts grapple with an unprecedented number of judicial vacancies. I mean, this is the reality, isn't it? That we are looking at prison population through the roof, the number of people incarcerated. For those people that are not incarcerated, they might as well be, because their quality of life, living in towns and cities where they could get murdered by the police or by a 14-year-old boy. I mean, it just doesn't... I just feel like the world has suddenly gone mad. Where's all the good news? And I don't want to kind of have to look to like celebrities and their kind of, that kind of popular culture for some good news. Good news should be happening in citizen culture, There should be a newspaper dedicated to good things that people in the community have done. I was reading earlier about a woman called Rayna Goolsby. She's a wife, a lawyer, a change agent. She's representing Florida's District 70. She's running for Florida's 13th Congressional District against Ron DeSantis. And she's a very kind of special candidate for lots of reasons. But I think that, she's the kind of person that we need to be celebrating in this situation, She's fought Ron DeSantis in the legislature. She's running for Congress to fight for the values that we all believe in, she says. So her Twitter handle is, let's just look it up, Michelle for FL, Florida. Michelle with one L, for Florida. And, these are the people who bring some light and positivity to an otherwise negative cityscape. We need people who think differently. We need people who are, who aren't prejudiced, who don't claim that they celebrate freedom and then make all these rules so that regular humans can't do normal things. Because I guarantee that, the behavior of Putin, like trying to cut off gas to Belarus and Poland, and this attitude that nothing matters and it's all about him and it's all about Russia, would be the same if Donald Trump was still running America. This isolationist attitude that we are the best and we can just indiscriminately go out and steal or kill, that was Trump's mentality. No consideration of the knock-on effect of this type of thing. And, we were very close. I mean, I do fear that Trump will win again in 2024. And we'll be, the clock will be wound back again. Unless he meets with a horrific schmelting accident between now and then. But I do fear that, a lot of countries are going down this route where, because the economics doesn't add up, where you can't afford to work and live, and then, the alternative is crime and incarceration, people are going to end up voting more for these far-right extremist characters and not for the Democrats, who fundamentally are the only people that would help people in this situation. We need to be helped. We need people who are understanding and kind and thoughtful, not discriminatory. And my fear is that, the kind of Trumpism which exists now in Florida and Arizona and Texas and Oklahoma and, Utah. I mean, more and more places now have embraced Trumpism. It's a thing. We had it in England in the 1970s and 80s. It was called Thatcherism. Started in 1979 and continued for about 15 to 20 years. Where the views of a solitary individual become the majority view of the nation. And those views were never really steeped in thought or goodness in the first place. I do love it when, America celebrates having a female vice president. And I often say, well, England had a female prime minister in 1979. You've literally taken 40 years to catch up. 40 years. fact, England has had 2 female prime ministers now. The second one wasn't quite as effective as the first one, you know? I actually look back on Theresa May and I'm like, yeah, she didn't do so bad. A bit like with George W. Bush, you know? At the time, you were just like, who is this guy? Get him away from me. Like, he's awful. He's so dangerous. And now, after Trumpism, we look back and when George W. Bush seems like a relatively measured person. Aside from the whole war thing, obviously. State agency probing COVID deaths in vet homes. More than 200 people died in the early months of the pandemic at homes in Menlo Park, Paramus and Vineland. It's on the front of the South Jersey Times. Elite secretive golf club unlawfully banned women. What? New Jersey's most exclusive golf course may be too exclusive. The state filed a civil rights complaint against the Pine Valley Golf Club on Wednesday, alleging a pattern of gender-based discrimination by the historically male-dominated club and its membership, its public accommodations, its employment, and restrictive housing opportunities to live on the course offered only to members. According to the 8-page administrative complaint, the State Attorney General's office alleged that Pine Valley violated New Jersey's law against discrimination by banning women from becoming members and restricting their ability to golf and their access to club facilities. I mean, I don't know. What is this? What happened? How did all this happen? Or when did it not stop happening, I should say? From its founding over 108 years ago until approximately April last year, the club prohibited women from becoming members, and with extremely narrow exceptions prohibited them from playing golf or otherwise accessing club facilities. As of July last year, it said the club had reported that it admitted only 3 women as members, representing less than 0.5% of its membership. Indeed, women were once not even allowed on the property. Wise Deborah's joined us. Hi, Wise Deborah. Nice to see you. Click subscribe. Deeply Moth is in. Petite Bass is in. Kareem has joined us as well. Welcome. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining Backchannel on this Thursday. It's 9:44 here on the West Coast, 12:44 Eastern. We're just looking through some of the morning papers at the moment. That was the South Jersey Times. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, New Mexico. La Cruces for New Mexico. The La Cruces News. I wish it had been better is the headline. Irrigation districts plan for dry year with drought-afflicted Rio Grande. Yes, more climate change. State GOP leader accused of mishandling donations. Surprise, surprise. Yes, the executive director of the state Republican Party was accused of using a shell company to funnel campaign contributions in a special congressional election last year. Kimberly Skaggs, named in the Federal Elections Commission complaint, is La Cruce's resident who ran for state senate in 2020 and later assumed leadership of the Doña Ana County GOP. Her husband, Joseph, is also an elected member of the Doña Ana County Soil and Water Conservation Board. And Terrell J. Skaggs. The whole family were at it. There's thieving and stealing and conniving and thriving. And then here's a cute story in La Cruces. Also, across the street from the New America Charter High School, you can buy an alcoholic beverage at the Amador Live. And although anyone can legally obtain opiates with a prescription at the pharmacy next door, they won't be able to buy cannabis there for now. That's after the La Cruces Planning and Zoning Commission sided with concerned school officials and residents and city staff on Tuesday night by denying a request to allow Mozilla Valley Pharmacy to add cannabis to their lineup of healthcare products. Well, the kids could have gone and got some in their lunch hour, you know? Pop out, go get a Twix, and a little bit of cannabis. I got given a collection of cannabis products the other day, the likes of which I will never be able to get through in my life. It was literally a huge bag full of it. All different products. I've never seen anything like it. I was like, wow, it's going to take me like 10 years to get through that. Anyway, maybe I'll start here. There's something very weird for me, coming from a country where cannabis is a Class B illegal drug, to a country or to a city, to a state in California where marijuana is legal for recreational purposes as well as medicinal. It's very weird being able to talk about it so openly, In England, no one talks about it. It's a secret. Politicians pretend they've never done it until a photograph is shown of them smoking as a kid, And they say, oh, well, I might have done it once. That's what happens. But it is kind of wonderful to be able to talk about it in such a free and open space without the fear of being, criticized. And I do think that it should be legalized nationally, You're much better off getting into weed products than you are getting into hard drugs. And in fact, the weed shops here are amazing. Carla, do you know that the weed shops here look like the Apple Store? Seriously. Look up MedMen and you'll see. MEDMEN. It is the Apple Store of cannabis. And they even dress the employees like they're working at Apple with a lanyard, And the bags, the product bags, little red bags, and, very well branded. MedMen. It's very clever, isn't it? Who'd have thought that, you would have thought that a state that legalizes marijuana would still keep it on the lowdown. No, not at all. Big shops. Hopefully you're enjoying Backchannel this morning. I'm Anthony Davis. We're here live every Monday, every weekday, Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific. That's 12 o'clock Eastern. You can send me a message right now if you're watching on an Echo Show or Fire TV. The magic word is say. So wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. And if you're listening right now on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, go to backchannel.tv, click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv. And click join the chat. That's how it works. Wise Zebras popped in. Hello there. Nice to see you. Stacy says, women should be treated the same as men. Yes, this is true. It's regarding the golf club, of course. Stacy says it's lunchtime if you're in Texas. Yes, it is lunchtime. I wish it was lunchtime for me. I'm famished. I'm always hungry at this time. I suppose this for me is like the time that I would normally eat like a little second breakfast. Like a bagel, a little creamed cheese, something vegan, Just a little something vegan. Okay, a couple more newspapers before we get into the meat of this gravy. To Oregon next, to the Herald News. Windmills off the Oregon coast, ? Biden administration looks to bring wind energy farms to the Pacific and Atlantic coasts. Why are you calling them windmills? I'll tell you why you're calling them windmills. Because you are giving Donald Trump credence, because he calls them windmills. They're wind turbines. It says the Biden administration wants to bring windmills and wind energy developments to the Oregon coast. The U.S. Department of the Interior announced on Wednesday the government is opening up preliminary process, including soliciting public comments and gauging interest from the energy sector, for bringing offshore wind energy farms about 12 nautical miles from Coos Bay and Brookings. The Oregon coastal areas comprise 1.16 million acres, according to the federal government. The windmill push... even saying windmill is so childish. It's not a windmill. It's not a windmill. The windmill push is part of renewable energy effort from the Biden administration and a marked change from President Donald Trump, a vehement and vocal opponent of windmills. U.S. Bureau of Ocean Energy Management Director Amanda Lefton said the project will create good-paying union jobs, deploying 30 gigawatts of offshore wind energy by 2030, according to a release announcing the wind effort. This is the first federal call for wind energy projects off the Oregon coast. The Biden-Harris administration is committed to supporting a robust, clean energy economy, and the upcoming steps taken toward possible leasing off the coast of Oregon and Central Atlantic provides another opportunity to strengthen this clean energy industry while creating good-paying jobs. It'll never happen. They'll do a public consultation, And as long as the media, such as the Herald and News for Oregon, push this negative propaganda, that people are just not going to go for it, you know? They're not windmills. Carlos, welcome. Nice to see you in California. Thanks for joining us here on Backchannel. Hit the subscribe button if you fancy on your Echo show. Governor Brown declares drought emergency in 4 more Oregon counties. This is Governor Kate Brown. Half the land area in the state is now under drought declaration. You know, that's Oregon, similar to California. Oregon Court of Appeal has overturned a $1.1 billion verdict against the state over its forest management practices. Yes, this is interesting, isn't it? 14 county governments need to be compensated for insufficient logging on state forest lands. A law that requires Oregon to manage the forest land for the greater permanent value does not create an immutable promise to maximize revenue for the counties, the appeals court ruled. So there we go. That's the Herald and News. Let's go to Rhode Island now. The Providence Journal. Are we ready for robots at the door is the question mark. Package delivery by aerial drone hasn't taken off yet, so with e-commerce demand continuing to grow, companies are looking to ground-based robots to move goods to your door. It says one of those robots was lobbying lawmakers at the State House on Tuesday to pass legislation that would let unmanned delivery vehicles traverse Rhode Island streets and sidewalks. Belonging to shipping giant FedEx, the robot, named Roxo, weighs 450 pounds and looks like a hotel mini-fridge with wheels and headlights. Unlike a fridge, it can go 20 miles an hour, navigate city streets, and hop on a curb or small stairs. That's kind of cool. You know, I don't have a problem with any of that. You know, you see robots around California delivering food and stuff. It's kind of normal now, you know. Normal thing. Do you have any robot deliveries in England yet? No? Oh, we have them everywhere here. Down in Venice, Santa Monica, you see little robots delivering food up and down Main Street. Super cute. Historic choice is the headline. Career law officer Darnell S. Weaver is first person of color to lead state police. Well, that's good. He's the incoming Rhode Island State Police Superintendent. He will have some serious issues to deal with. And they believe he's up to it. That's good. He looks like a serious candidate. Farm seeks decision to restart greenhouse. Town ignored state's right to farm act. And bashing of Twitter sale results in backlash. Yes, a State House candidate and teacher sparked backlash in national headlines for using class time to voice opposition to Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. On Monday, when the purchase was announced, Enrique Sanchez, who works as a substitute teacher, tweeted, "Of course I explained to my students in all 5 of my classes today why Elon Musk buying Twitter is..." I'm going to presume that's wrong. Is not good for free speech. I don't know what he said. It continues on page 5. So there we go. There's some of the newspapers for you this morning. We'll have 3 more to come, including the San Antonio Express News in just a little while. A reminder that Backchannel has a growing list of shows, including Haley and Allison's Good Morning. You can start your morning from 3 a.m. Pacific, that's 6 o'clock Eastern, with 2 hours of silly fun and games. Haley and Allison and producer Will have trivia, as well as the answers to your burning questions and the news you might have missed. They're followed by Live Every Day with Liv Harrison from 5 a.m. Pacific, that's 7 o'clock Eastern. You can join Liv every Monday, Wednesday and Friday morning to celebrate the little things in life in an extraordinary way. Candid conversations, lots of laughs and plenty of coffee will fuel you and encourage you to live every day. And on air just before me is Get On Up with Jam and Renee. Wake up on the West Coast with community and conscious living. Yes, Jam and Renee have got it all covered, from what people think to who's wearing what. You'll leave entertained and enlightened every day, and you'll learn how to pay it all forward. There you go. Okay, let's see where we're at now. Oh, so this substitute teacher is a former political director for Black Lives Matter. So he's, this is good. I believe in political activism as long as it is on the right side of justice. I find the people's perspective very interesting. People's perspective on what is biased. And actually, bias often comes from ourselves. It doesn't come from the subject. The subject is not biased. If we talk about, racism in the police, that's not a biased subject. It's a factual subject, but your political bias might make you feel that it is biased. But that's your bias. It's not the bias of the story. The story is true. And the problem is here in America that people's projection of bias has become the norm. And they just presume that if you tell a story, a true story, if it says something bad about somebody, your supreme leader, for example, then it is a biased story. And it is not. It's a true story. Your bias is giving it a political tinge. And I do feel like, it's important that we remind ourselves that where the bias is born, You can remind me anytime with your rights to reply right here, So just send me a message in the usual way. You can wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. And it comes through to me here. And if you don't have an Echo Show, then you can go to backchannel.tv on your browser. Easy. So you do that. So many people jumping in. Stacy says, it's not 7 o'clock Central Time is 9 o'clock Central Time. Power comes on at 1 p.m. Central Time. Interesting. Okay. We've been trying to work out what Central Time is. I thought it was 2 hours, but apparently it's 1 hour from me. Who knew? Thank you for joining us. No names just dropped in. If you would like to give yourself a name, you can tell your Echo Show to change your name to a name, and then I can give you a name. But welcome, no name. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. We're going to bring you the US News Update now. It's a little podcast that I make daily for the Volley Network. It's just a little update it's just 2 minutes long of what happens across the United States. And we'll play it to you now. If you like the sound of it, you could subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Here it is. It's Thursday, April 28, from the Volley Network. This is your daily US News Update. I'm Anthony Davis. President Joe Biden said American teachers are being unfairly targeted in the culture wars and warned against book banning in an event at the White House on Wednesday. Biden, speaking at an annual 2022 National and State Teachers of the Year award ceremony, said politicians are trying to score points by banning books in an apparent reference to conservatives and Republicans in states from Texas to Tennessee. American teachers have dedicated their lives to teaching our children and lifting them up, Biden said, to murmurs of agreement from the teachers. We've got to stop making them the target of culture wars. That's where this is going. Across the United States, more than 1,000 titles, mostly addressing racism and LGBTQ issues, have been removed from school libraries in recent months, according to the writers' organization PEN America. He also defended U.S. teachers who have been criticized by groups like Mums for Liberty for the way they teach about race and slavery in the United States. Meanwhile, U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders asked lawmakers to delete language from a bill that would fund development of a new lunar lander for NASA, a move seen as part of the senator's effort to nix federal funds that could go to companies owned by billionaire Jeff Bezos. The provision is part of a broad bill that would provide $52 billion in semiconductor manufacturing subsidies and authorize additional international funds to boost US competitiveness and scientific research. Your daily US news update is part of the Volley Network. To hear my live daily morning show, ask your Amazon Echo device to open Backchannel. There it is, the US News Update. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Anthony Davis. It is Backchannel. It's Thursday morning, the 28th of April. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us. And if you are watching on an Echo Show device, then you're very welcome to send a message very easily. Just wake it up, say the word "say," and then your message. And if you're listening right now on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, well, go to backchannel.tv in your browser. That's backchannel.tv. And you can send a message there as well. I'm here every weekday, Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific. That's 12 o'clock Eastern. And you can ask questions, chime in on what we're talking about, or anything else you want to send my way. As Backchannel is the only place on your Echo device where you can watch and listen to live shows right here in real time. So, thank you to you for popping in. Rebecca's just joined us from Washington. Lots of no names. Feel free to change your no name to a name if you want me to give you a mention. You can just ask your Echo Show to do that for you. Super easy. We've been looking through some of the morning papers this morning, seeing what's been going on across the United States. To South Carolina now, syringes by mail. How a Greenville non-profit is reaching opioid users in rural Southern Carolina. So this is a non-profit that helps those struggling with drug addiction, is expanding its mission of meeting people where they are through a mailing service that puts clean syringes in the hands of those in rural parts of South Carolina. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's a very kind of forward-thinking ideal. You know, instead of criminalizing people for being addicted to opioids, you just enable them to do it safely. Because it's not their fault they got addicted to opioids. I mean, the pharmaceutical companies now that have been sued and have taken responsibility and liability for the opioid crisis, it's all kind of, it's all out in the open now, isn't it? Nuclear danger is the headline. The International Atomic Energy Agency's Director General says the level of safety at Europe's largest nuclear plant, currently under Russian occupation in Ukraine, is like a red light blinking as his organization tries in vain to get access for work, including repairs. They said that the IAEA needs access to a plant in southern Ukraine so its inspectors can, among other things, re-establish connections with the Vienna-based headquarters of the UN agency. And everybody needs to be involved. So, this is the worry, isn't it? Not just that one, but there's also Chernobyl as well, which is in northern Ukraine. Okay, what else is here? Russia cuts natural gas to 2 NATO nations in escalation. Yes, that's methane gas. I always say that because I'm fed up of it being called natural gas. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not natural, I tell you what's natural. Leaving it in the ground. That's natural. That's when it's natural gas, when it's left in the ground. You want to farm it, stick your tool in and suck it out. That's methane. The San Antonio Express News this morning, Biden plan will help increase help at the border, and a photograph of the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who I'm a big fan of, by the way, because, he'd only been in for 2 weeks and suddenly my green card arrived. Staring down bipartisan outcry, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas told members of Congress on Wednesday that his agency can handle the anticipated surge in migration this summer as the White House lifts a COVID-era public health order to expel over 1 million immigrants over the border. Which is, certainly concerning, isn't it? As they said, we inherited a broken and dismantled system that is already under strain. It's not built to manage the current levels and types of migratory flows. Only Congress can fix this, Mayorkas said. A significant increase in migrant encounters will strain our system even further and will address this challenge successfully, he said. He's very smart, this guy. Very good guy. Not just for show is the headline. A photograph of Christina Thompson, who's 16, working on a project for the Fashionable Show. She's adapting clothing designs. super cute. And non-profit by Sutton Building on Near East Side. The Texas Research and Technology Foundation has amassed more land on the Near East Side as the non-profit seeks to build a hub there for life sciences startups and established companies. So there we go. I think we've covered most of those other stories. There's one more story. Doctor in opioid case is ordered to rehab himself. Things have been spiraling out of control for Paul Silver, San Antonio internal medicine doctor who dispensed copious amounts of opioids even after losing his medical license. He got hooked on the stimulant Ritalin and is accused of using heavier drugs. His marriage and finances are in shambles. He shuttered his practice without informing his patients. And he allegedly started using his patients' personal information to write some of the hundreds of prescriptions of painkillers and other controlled medications that were being distributed underground by him and 4 alleged accomplices, 2 of whom have been charged. So they've yanked his medical license, or they did that in mid-March. Just goes to show anyone can be addicted, even the doctors themselves. Finally, the Miami Herald, a photograph of Thomas James speaking on Wednesday next to supporters. After decades in prison, state admits he's actually innocent. Yes. After more than 3 decades in prison, he's a black boy, by the way, just so you know. I say boy, he's 55. He looks fantastic. Seriously, how is that guy 55? You're kidding me. You put his picture on the screen. He looks fantastic. After more than 3 decades in prison, Thomas Rayna James sat in a packed Miami courtroom, shackled and wearing a red inmate jumpsuit. On paper, still convicted of murder, just past 11:30 Wednesday, James heard the words that he'd been repeating for years. "We have determined that Thomas Rayna James is actually innocent," a prosecutor told the judge. James showed no emotion, but inside, he said later, it felt unreal as the judge undid his conviction and the state attorney's office officially dropped the case. "If there weren't so many people there, I probably would have fainted," he said. "It hit me emotionally. I realized it was actually happening." Now he's a free man at the age of 55. I mean, the advantage he's got is he kind of looks like he's 28. I really feel like, photographs are more helpful, aren't they? You know? I'm not seeing any chats, Carla, just so you know. No. Not seeing anything, no. No, nothing. No, I'm not seeing any. I'm just being told that Riyadh is trying to message me, and I'm not seeing any messages from Riyadh in my dashboard. Just so you know, Riyadh. Scott's just joined us. Welcome, Scott. Nice to see you. Great to have you on the show. DeSantis gives a victory to users of solar. This is on the front of the Miami Herald as well. It says, citing steep increases in the prices of gas and groceries, Governor Ron DeSantis vetoed a bill on Wednesday that would have allowed Florida electric utilities to impose steep fees on businesses and homeowners who install solar panels. Given that the United States is experiencing the worst inflation in 40 years and that customers have seen steep increases in the price of gas and groceries, the state of Florida should not contribute to the financial crunch that our citizens are experiencing, DeSantis said. So there we go. DeSantis vetoes a bill that would have let utilities charge big fees to businesses and homeowners who install solar. Let's have a look here. Oh, I see. There we go. It's just dropped in now. Riyadh says, hey there. Any thoughts on Michael Schellenberger, who's running for governor in California? Addiction and homelessness is his main focus. No, I'm seeing it now. It just, I refreshed and it showed up, but it didn't show up before, which is very strange. It says, I don't really know much about Michael Schellenberger, to be honest. The only guy I'm really aware of is Rick Caruso, who seems to have bought up all of the advertising on on Southern California television, you know. But I need to look into Michael Schellenberger because, I want to know who all the governor candidates are for this state. But I kind of feel like it needs to be a female, you know. I really feel like we've had lots of men, obviously Jerry Brown for so long. You know, I think it's time for a girl because the boys are not doing so great. It's a big state, you know. It's the 5th richest economy in the world. And I kind of feel like maybe Ursula von der Leyen can come over from Europe and run California. That would be fun. Scott's in Wisconsin. Welcome, Scott. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. You can click subscribe on your screen. Riyadh says he's going after a more EU approach to drug issues and homelessness. Well, I wonder what an EU approach is. Is that more of a kind of socialist attitude? He wrote a book called San Francisco. Oh, San Francisco. Even better. I will have a look at that and come back to me. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow, you know. Maybe I'll do some research in the meantime and find out what Michael Schellenberger is all about. Okay, let's go back finally to the Miami Herald. It says, they survived the Holocaust and found each other 79 years later. This is two 97-year-old men, one from Boca Raton and the other from Bal Harbour, had a chance reunion. Isn't that incredible? He was like, I knew I'd seen that face before. The 97-year-old focused on the man leaning against the wall but couldn't place how he knew him. Then the man spoke. All Sam Ron had to do was say one word, Pionki, and Waxel knew the connection right away. We worked together on a daily basis, he said, of the labor camp where they spent about a year together in occupied Poland. Ron was an honorary chair of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum South Florida dinner on the 20th of March in Boca Raton. And Waxel could barely wait until the prayer before dinner was finished. He popped out of his seat and headed straight over to Ron, who is also 97. You are my brother, he told him as they embraced. You see, there is a happy ending story in the news somewhere. We found it. Okay. Superb. Let's jump into a couple of our stories that we've got to look at. This story about racism and this very major report that's come out of Minneapolis. But first, let me remind you that to anybody who's on the chat and joining in, if you'd like to send me a message, and you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo Show or a Fire TV, the magic word is say. So if you're listening right now, you are on an Echo speaker without a screen, you can't see me, go to backchannel.tv, click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv in your browser. You can do it on your phone or on your desktop, your laptop, however you want to do that. But that's how it happens. And another thing you can do is press subscribe. If you're watching and you see that subscribe button, click on it because subscribing will let you know when we're going live. And we've got some plans coming up in the next few weeks for those of you that are subscribed. Another way you can help us out, no matter where you're watching or listening, is by leaving a review. So go to backchannel.tv, click leave a review, as your positive reviews help keep this show going. So that's backchannel.tv and click leave a review. Okay, let's get into the weeds of this story about the state inquiry that's found police in Minneapolis that have engaged in a pattern of race discrimination for at least the past decade. I mean, they only did the research for the last 10 years, because otherwise, I'm sure it goes back 50, 100 years, depending on how old the police department is. But we're going to look into some of the findings from this 72-page report. The investigation was launched after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis in 2020. And Minnesota's Civil Rights Enforcement Agency looked into how officers used force, stopped, searched, and arrested minorities compared to white residents. Their analysis found wide disparities in the treatment of different races. Its conclusions could be used to force the police department to change its practices and policies. So let's look at some of this in a little more detail, because it's very interesting to me. And it's of no surprise to you, especially if you are black or brown and you have witnessed police discrimination. There's input in this report from residents and officers, city staff, and others as well. The report said that the police department data demonstrates significant racial disparities with respect to officers, use of force, traffic stops, searches, citations, and arrests. And it said officers used covert social media to surveil black individuals and black organizations unrelated to criminal activity, and maintain an organizational culture where some officers and supervisors use racist, misogynistic, and disrespectful language with impunity. Chemical Bedbug has just joined us, by the way. Welcome, nice to see you. He's given us a little wave, and I wave back to you. It's my real wave connecting to your virtual wave, so nice to see you, Chemical Bedbug. Love these names, so good. Rebecca Lucero, who's a human rights commissioner, said during a news conference after the report was released that it doesn't single out any officers or city leaders. This investigation is not about one individual or one incident. Asked about how long the agreement with the city, known as a constant decree, might have to remain in force, Lucero said as long as it takes to do it right, consent decrees in federal cases, for example, often remain in place for years. Well, the report said the city and police department do not need to wait to institute immediate changes and begin to address the causes of discrimination that weaken the city's public safety system and harm community members. It listed several steps the city can take now, including implementing stronger internal oversight to hold officers accountable for their conduct, better training, better communication with the public about critical incidents such as officer-involved shootings. Well, National Civil Rights Attorney Ben Crump and his law partners, who won a $27 million settlement from the city for the Floyd family, called the report historic and monumental in its importance. They said they were grateful and deeply hopeful that change is imminent. They called on the city, state, and police leaders to accept the challenge of these findings and make meaningful change, at least to create trust between communities of color in Minneapolis and those who are sworn to protect and serve them. I mean, my worry is that it's actually the leaders of these police departments that are often at fault, you know? And that it's all very well saying, okay, this is the result of the report. But who is going to be the one to take responsibility for this? Because a lot of the police department leaders are themselves racist. And that systemic racism is inbuilt into their thinking, you know? So, this is a 2-year report, incidentally. This literally started after the murder of George Floyd. The city's systems for holding police officers accountable for misconduct have remained insufficient and ineffective, according to the report. The police department has continued to emphasize paramilitary training that results in officers unnecessarily escalating encounters of using inappropriate levels of force. Well, you saw that with this guy, Patrick Lyoya. The police officer who approached him used paramilitary-style, escalation tactics. There was nothing de-escalating about what this guy did at all. This police officer, Patrick Lyoya goes, "What did I do?" Literally hands in the air, "What have I done?" And the guy shouts, "Get back in the car, get back in the car." I mean, that is not de-escalation. The Human Rights Department will work with Minneapolis officials to negotiate the terms of a court-enforceable consent decree, said Human Rights Commissioner. The investigation paints an unsettling picture of the city of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Police Department engaging in a pattern of racial discrimination over the past decade. This pattern is unlawful, it harms everyone, and is sometimes costing community members their lives. The mayor, Jacob Frey, called the report's findings repugnant, at times horrific. He said, "They made me sick to my stomach." He holds ultimate authority over the police department's operations. Frey said the city has at times failed to follow through on recommendations to improve accountability in the police department. This time, it needs to be different. Well, the interim police chief, Amelia Huffman, said the department has made changes over the past 2 years, and police officials will review the report to ensure we have a clear understanding of every issue that was raised. We have challenges ahead, but I'm confident there are men and women in the Minneapolis Police Department who have the desire to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. Sounds like a very woolly response, doesn't it? The president of the Police Officers Federation for Minneapolis said, "We look forward to examining the evidence that was used to come to their determination so we can move forward as a department. We're committed to moving forward in a way that addresses identified issues head-on and restores the community's faith in those who are entrusted with public safety." I don't know. I just worry that the problem with systemic racism and the problem with not pointing the finger at any individuals means that things don't change. You know, this report, I'm sure, discovered which individuals were at fault. Why not name them? You know, I do feel that American justice really does lack accountability for leadership, people in uniform, people who are elected representatives. You know, there is zero accountability. I was watching the Health Secretary of the United Kingdom being interviewed yesterday on television. And, you know, American politicians, especially on the right, never allow themselves to be interviewed long form by the mainstream media. They just don't. And unfortunately, you know, when you're not interviewed and when you're not given, you know, if you're not held accountable, you end up in a situation where people just don't trust you. And is it surprising to you that, like, Republican politicians refuse to be interviewed? Democratic politicians being interviewed all the time, but Republicans just refuse to be interviewed. They don't want to answer tough questions. And invariably, a lot of the American media, you know, even the CNNs and the likes of these channels, they don't know how to conduct a tough interview. They don't ask the burning questions, you know? Okay, let's look at a little video now of the city leaders responding to the report by the, against the Minneapolis Police Department, and see how they responded to this. Let's see if we can get this on the screen for you now.
But implemented more fully. There hasn't been a lack of policy changes. We have dug in and delivered quite a few policy changes both before and after George Floyd was murdered. Prior mayors have delivered policy changes. As has been pointed out, though, policy changes are not the whole game. A true culture shift is about people. It is about personnel. It's getting the right individuals in. It's getting the wrong individuals out. There's quite a bit of work to be done there. Are we there yet? No, we're not. But you've got a united team here that is fully embracing the shortcomings, both past and present, previous administrations and this one, to get this right. So the message here is one of a unified response because, as I mentioned earlier, other cities have had investigations. Other cities have had consent decrees and receiverships. Other cities have had shortcomings in policing, and obviously, Minneapolis does as well. What we want to make sure is that we're seizing this particular moment, these particular findings, and then doing right with precision.
So there we go. That's it wasn't the greatest response, was it? I was expecting something a little bit more dramatic. It just seemed like he was going through the motions. And this is my worry with a lot of these people, is that there is this kind of, we've heard it all before. But this report is so fundamental. It's very hard to describe, how significant this report is. And I really worry that, we are now living in like a parallel universe where stuff like this comes out that is so extreme as this. I mean, the Washington Post has done a piece about it, saying that Minneapolis police engaged in discriminatory race-based policing. You know, it says the report cited as evidence of what it calls the department's pattern of unlawful, discriminatory practices, racial disparities in how officers use force, stop, search, arrest, and cite people of color, particularly black individuals compared to white individuals in similar circumstances. Officers' use of covert social media to surveil black individuals and black organizations unrelated to criminal activity. And their consistent use of racist, misogynistic, and disrespectful language. So this is all off the back of George Floyd being executed beneath the knee of the former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. The report release comes just weeks before the second anniversary of George Floyd's killing, which sparked weeks of protests and a nationwide reckoning on race and justice. Jacob Frey said he found the report's details to be repugnant, at times horrific, as we read earlier. So, in addition to the state investigation, the Justice Department launched its own sweeping probe into the Minneapolis Police Department, announced a day after Chauvin was convicted. The federal probe, known as a pattern or practice investigation, can take months or years to complete and result in agreements known as consent decrees mandating court-enforced reforms. Well, in its 72-page report, the State Department Human Rights described its investigation as expansive, saying it involved scouring hundreds of thousands of pages of documents, including internal communications and officers' disciplinary records, examining around 700 hours of body camera footage, observing police training, joining officers on ride-alongs, analyzing years' worth of use-of-force incidents and traffic stops, and interviewing community members, police officers, prosecutors, and city officials. The conclusions were devastating, finding that the department's problems were exacerbated by poor training, oversight, and accountability. I mean, here's a thing. What if this is happening in every police department across the country? Just think about that for a second. What if this is not isolated to Minneapolis? What if this is much bigger than this? This is my concern, is that this is just opening a Pandora's box of systemic racism that is baked into policing in America. Let's have a little listen into this now.
I'm committed to working with the Department of Human Rights, Mayor Frey, my council colleagues, the community, and MPD to implement much-needed reform.
I will not be tokenized. I stand here because I believe in the city of Minneapolis. I believe in the fact that this has to change. We have to change. We have to own our behavior, own our policies, own everything that we do, and change. The city cannot sustain it, our employees cannot sustain it, and our residents cannot sustain this way of being.
There have been so many instances in the past where an investigation has been conducted, findings have been had, recommendations have been given, and then the action ultimately fell short. This time, it needs to be different.
How can you reassure people in Minneapolis that you are serious in making changes, and what specifically are you going to do to hold the Minneapolis Police Department more accountable?
We are dead serious in making these necessary changes. And it's not as if the changes begin today. There are quite a few reforms that have taken place both before George Floyd was murdered and after, both in this administration and in administrations prior.
State investigators said this pattern of discriminatory policing could continue in part because of a lack of consistent action by both current and former city officials. Do you feel they've characterized your efforts to change policing adequately, and why should people have faith in you that this will be the time the meaningful change occurs?
You know, the report, as you mentioned, called out the lack of consistent action by a number of mayors and leaders and chiefs in our city throughout at least the last 10 years. I won't speak for any other mayors, and I'll say, look, I think we need to be doing more. I think the action needs to not just be more consistent, but implemented more fully. There hasn't been a lack of policy changes. We have dug in and delivered quite a few policy changes both before and after George Floyd was murdered. Prior mayors have delivered policy changes. As has been pointed out, though, policy changes are not the whole game. A true culture shift is about people. It is about personnel. It's getting the right individuals in. It's getting the wrong individuals.
So there we go, a little bit of an update from the Minneapolis Police Department, kind of hopefully taking seriously. I'm sure they do take it seriously, but my worry is that, individuals, it's fundamentally individuals, isn't it, who are responsible for a police department. Anything, if we blame an organization, it's individuals that make up that organization. And we often think that it's the company. Well, who is the company? The company are the people that work for it. That's who the company is. And so it's the same with the police department. You can say, well, they've put in new rules and practices, but fundamentally you're still dealing with individuals who are racist. So how do you fix that? Hello to Caroline, who's popped in from Georgia. Brawny Pelican is with us as well. A few no names there. Stacey had to go, but thank you for joining us for that period. Great to see you. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis, and you're here on the Anthony Davis Show, which is live on Backchannel, the only place on your Echo device where you can watch and listen to live shows and chat with hosts in real time. I'm here every weekday, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. Pacific, that's 12 o'clock Eastern. You can send me a message, ask questions, chime in on what we're talking about, or anything else you want to send my way. And if you can see me right now and you're watching on an Echo show or Fire TV, the magic word is say. So wake up your device, say the word say, and then your message. And if you're listening on an Echo speaker and you can't see me, then go to backchannel.tv on your browser and click join the chat. That's backchannel.tv. There you go. So we're just looking at the Minneapolis police report that suggested that the police department was engaging in discriminatory and race-based policing. And we were looking at Mayor Jacob Frey, who found the report's details to be repugnant and horrific. And we've been just working our way through this 72-page report and getting our heads around the conclusions. City and police leaders have always been aware of deep organizational, cultural problems within the department, the report said. But let the problems persist, which resulted in unlawful policing practices that undermine public safety. So, we shall see. My fear is that this report comes out and then in another 2 weeks' time, another young black man will be executed at the hands of a police officer, and then we'll be back to square one again, Marilou's joined us from Arkansas. Welcome, Marilou. Nice to see you. You can click on the subscribe button if you'd like to. Join us there. Let's look at Elon Musk now, because his rocket company, Spacex, has launched 4 more astronauts into orbit on the Crew Dragon capsule yesterday morning. The crew includes Jessica Watkins, the first black woman to serve on an extended mission on the International Space Station. So who is she? She's a geologist, a NASA astronaut, an aquanaut, a former international rugby player as well, and also a geoscientist whose work has stretched from Earth all the way to Mars. Currently assigned to fly to space for the first time with SpaceX's Crew 4 mission to the International Space Station. She was selected to join NASA's 2017 astronaut class before reporting for astronaut training in August of that year. Jessica was one of 12 new NASA astronaut candidates selected out of over 18,300 applicants. Isn't that amazing? The first black woman to work on the ISS crew. I was worried about the ISS. I thought after the war in Ukraine, it was just going to end up just like floating off into space and nobody would really care about it. But if it wasn't for Elon Musk, building a device that can effectively attach onto the ISS, because my thinking was, and it's quite naive, I'm no engineer, that whoever built the old International Space Station didn't supply the plans on how to build a device that could dock onto it, you know? It's a bit like trying to find an adapter to plug in an old pair of headphones. Or the person who created the curtain in the changing room in the store, who never met the person who made the cubicle. You know, you're constantly pulling the curtain one side, it pops open the other side. It's like, who made this thing? So that was my concern with the International Space Station. Turns out everything's okay. Jessica Watkins launched to the station yesterday morning as part of SpaceX's Crew 4 mission. The crew lifted off on the new SpaceX Dragon capsule Freedom. They're on track to dock with the station. I think they docked at midnight 15 this morning. So 15 minutes into this morning. And with this mission, which the crew spend about 6 months aboard the station, Watkins will be the first black woman astronaut to be part of a crew aboard the ISS. Might not be the last time she makes history, as one of NASA's Artemis astronauts who could fly to and land on the moon. Let's send her to the moon, you know? She says, I think it's important to recognize this is a milestone for our agency and for our country as well, that we are building on the foundation that was laid by the black women astronauts who've come before me, Watkins said. I'm definitely honored to be a small part of that legacy, but ultimately to be an equal member of the crew. I find it very interesting, the argument that Republicans make about positive discrimination. You know, there's a lot of Republicans now, lawmakers especially I'm talking about, who would see highlighting the first black female to go onto the ISS as racist, right? That would be their attitude. They'd be like, well, why are you saying that she's black? Why does it matter that she's black? What you're doing is racism. And this is what these people fail to understand. Isn't it great how I can take a positive story like the first black woman on the ISS and turn it into criticism of people who don't understand about the importance of celebrating and supporting a race or a community of people who fundamentally have been ignored, attacked, beaten, executed, or enslaved. You know, I mean, it's like, this is what's important. Black people are playing catch-up in American society. This is why it's important. Because white slave owners delayed the, opportunities for black people in America. And it continues. I mean, look at the number of black people incarcerated here in the US. And they're working, often for free, or for slave wages. So arguably slavery never went away. It just got moved into state penitentiaries. Making her first flight to space with Crew 4, Watkins is the 5th black woman in history to fly to space, following NASA astronauts Mae Jemison, Stephanie Wilson, Joan Higginbotham, and private astronaut Sian Proctor. There remain 2 black women in NASA's astronaut corps who have not yet flown to space, Yvonne Cagle and Jeanette Epps. Epps is currently scheduled to fly to space with Boeing's Starliner capsule, the company's parallel to SpaceX's Dragon. Following her historic mission aboard the space station, Watkins' next stop could be the moon. Yes, NASA's Artemis program aims to return humans to the moon's surface for the first time since the Apollo program's last lunar landing in 1972. The first mission of this program, an uncrewed test flight called Artemis 1, is set to launch this year. Watkins is one of NASA's astronauts on the Artemis team, meaning she's eligible to be chosen for one of the Artemis crewed missions, possibly even the first Artemis moon landing. As a geologist, Watkins has shared her excitement at the possibility of one day landing on the moon. The jury is still out to me as to whether or not they ever landed on the moon. I mean, I guess they probably did, but I just can't come to terms with it. I just can't come to terms with it. It's a little bit like, people that couldn't intellectualize the pandemic and said, well, it didn't exist because I can't see it. It's a little bit like me and the moon landings. I'm like, really? Really? That thing up there? I don't think so. It'll be the first moon landing since 1972. NASA has also stated that with its Artemis program, it aims to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon too. So, I mean, it'll be worth going back to the moon just to do that, I guess. We're going to talk to Hal in just a few minutes, find out what's happening on his show. First, though, a reminder that Backchannel has a growing list of shows, including Kate Cocker's Everyday Positivity Show on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 o'clock. That's 9 a.m. Eastern for an hour of positive news and good vibes. Following my show every Monday through Friday is Your Pal Hal, with Hal Rudnick taking you on a tour of comedy, news, and pop culture from 11 a.m. Don't forget also The Drive with Mario Smith, weekdays from 1 o'clock or 4 p.m. Eastern. Everyone's drive home needs a second look. Mario Smith will make sure you are in the know. So there we go. I don't think we've got time to talk about the student debt story, which is a shame because it's such a good one. This is J.D. Vance, Mitt Romney, Jim Jordan, and other conservatives are staunchly opposed to making life easier for 43 million American former students. They just, I mean, I can't, even Mitt Romney, who is a very, centrist character. I mean, Jim Jordan I can understand. He's like the devil incarnate. But, Mitt Romney, I mean, come on, Mitt. You voted for Trump's impeachment. Understand that there is good and evil in this world. Student debt is ridiculous. Student debt shouldn't still be hanging around the necks of people who are in their 30s and 40s. Just shouldn't. Apparently young people want student debt relief, but not all want it totally cancelled, according to a poll. I don't believe that. I just don't. I just don't believe it. Fundamentally, any kind of debt is difficult, but this research that was done by Harvard, it said 85% are in favor of government action on student loan debt. More than a third, 38% of the 2,000 young Americans surveyed favor total debt cancellation. When asked about mental health, 52% of people surveyed reported feelings of depression or hopelessness. Well, money and mental health problems are intrinsically linked, and they have been since time began. The sense of hopelessness that you cannot afford to live, or you cannot afford your life, or you cannot afford to, gift your family presents because you have such little money left over, let alone feed your kids. But according to this survey, only 38% favor total debt cancellation. The poll was done as part of the Harvard Public Opinion Project to look at how young Americans feel about politics, voting, and public service. It's one of two the university does each year, one in the fall, one in the spring. Yeah. Just cancel the debt. Come on, it's enough already with the debt. It's enough already with the debt. I just get the feeling that we're so generous when it comes to funding the military. The military, which incidentally are, not currently seeing active service because they've withdrawn the military from all of these theatres of war. And yet at the same time, they approved an $800 billion budget for the military. That's what I don't get. It's like, why do you need the biggest military in the world if fundamentally you don't want to see active service? Is it just so that you can posture? Or is it that actually a socialist program like the military, where people are fed and clothed and housed and paid for by the public purse, is what the country needs? People need the military here in America because it's a job. It's a paying job. It's a socialist program, the military. So there you can see on the screen Jim Jordan and his, references. Cancelling student loan debt is stupid. Well, that's a stupid tweet because it doesn't say anything, it offers nothing. Mitt Romney's made a slightly better version of that, but it's more critical of the Dems. Jim Jordan really is. They call him Jim Jordan JGYM. You know that's how they refer to him, as Jim, because of the scandal where all this abuse was taking place in the school where he worked as a gym instructor, and he failed to, he basically covered it up and failed to blow the whistle on the child abuse that was going on. So they call him Jim Jordan, G-Y-M. We're going to talk to Hal in just a second. If he's available, he's welcome to pop in at any moment and share with us what is happening in his show. That's your pal, Hal. He's on next, by the way. He's here, like me, every weekday, but he starts at 11 o'clock Pacific. That's 2 o'clock Eastern. And just a reminder that if you're watching right now and you can see that subscribe button on your Echo show down the left-hand side of your screen, click it. Subscribing will let you know when we're going live. And also, as I've mentioned, we've got some special plans coming up in the next few weeks for those people who are subscribed. Another way you can help us out is to go to backchannel.tv and click on Leave a Review. Because your positive reviews help keep this show going. That's backchannel.tv and click Leave a Review. And as I said, I'm here on Backchannel every weekday from 9 a.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday. So you can join me again tomorrow, last one of the week. In order to do that, just open your device, or say to your device, open Backchannel, and your Echo show will kind of do that for you. So, is Hal here yet? Hello, Hal. You can... We'll just welcome him in. Ah, he is here. Welcome. We're having a few little internet issues here, so we can't bring you into the show. Let's see if we can see what happened. Nothing at all. Let's have a look. Yes, the tech is a blessing and a curse. Carla, I suggest you turn your Wi-Fi off and then on again in the top right-hand corner. Oh. That was me typing like that. It's my terrible typing. Apologies in advance. And the final thing I was going to suggest to you is leaving a review. So if you go to backchannel.tv, if you haven't done that yet, and you hit the leave a review button, you can send us your thoughts on the show, but you can also leave suggestions for upcoming segments and bits and pieces that will be helpful to you. If you want to see the show, if you want to see us include new sections or something that you would like to have on the show, we're very open to your suggestions. So just go to backchannel.tv and you can do that there. Easy, no problem. Just a reminder of what we've been looking at in the show. We've been talking about racism and looking at the state inquiry that found police in Minneapolis that have engaged in a pattern of race discrimination for at least the past decade. And we were looking at the findings from that 72-page report. We discussed Elon Musk's rocket company, Spacex, launching 4 more astronauts into orbit on the Crew Dragon capsule yesterday morning, including the first black woman to serve on the extended mission. There we go. Hal, if you're ready, I think we might be ready now to bring you in. There you go, you see?
Hello.
Sorry about the delay.
Oh, not at all, not at all. I'm at the whim of technology. I serve at its leisure. At its pleasure. It's vexing to me often. So no worries.
You're practically speaking in Shakespearean English there, which is very good for me because that's kind of how I talk normally when I'm at home.
It is. I have to step my game up.
Yeah.
When I have audience with Anthony Davis.
We were just talking about student debt. I was going to ask you if you've still got any debts left over from being a student, or is that not something you ever got involved in?
Oh, I did, and I've paid off most of it. I actually do have a little bit that I keep kicking down the road.
Really? And you're like 28 now, so you've had it for like 10 years or something.
I've had it for a minute. It's true.
Yeah.
Too long, longer than I should have, Anthony.
Do you think it should be wiped out? Jim Jordan says that he thinks, it would be stupid to do such a thing.
Yeah, I saw that. So I mean, that's what a simplistic take on it. Stupid. Yeah. I mean, could you elaborate in some thoughtful discourse, please, Jim Jordan? You know what? I think it would be good for our current administration. I think he'd win. I think he'd win over some folks. It would just be it might be a little bit of a publicity win, because I don't think Biden has had a great go of it. Mm-hmm. He's been, it's been a perfect storm for him, just as far as Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and just various hurdles he's faced, rising gas prices, things that you can't really attribute to him, right? Even, but it's his administration, so he's going to get saddled with it.
Mm-hmm. I think that as with all these things, anything that is going to be suggested by the Democrats is going to be opposed by the Republicans, and that's why Jim Jordan says it's stupid, because he doesn't really have an answer. Let's be honest. But it's not in his wheelhouse.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I heard you bringing out he's just a disgraceful guy. Turns his back on victims of abuse, and he's one of the worst.
Yeah, he's and also the fact that he won't wear a jacket is something that I find very annoying as well. It's like why he has to be in his shirt sleeves the whole time. It just diminishes his power, I guess. But he's really not a very nice person. I mean, he's every time I see him interviewed, it's like, wow, what a horrific kind of character you are.
Yeah, it's a real rogues gallery on that side of the aisle. Especially, from the last administration. I mean, you just look at some of the people associated with them. And then currently, just your Marjorie Taylor Greenes, your Lauren Boeberts, your Matt Gaetzes. It's, we've hit some all-time lows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. I really think that the Democrats need to work on the assumption that Trump is going to win next time. And, because I think that there's this denial that it could ever happen again. And I think it's definitely going to happen again now, mainly because of the rigging that's going on at the various legislatures.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just so tired of this kind of non-plus attitude to it all. They should be doing press conferences every week about the fall of democracy in the West. And they're just kind of getting on business as usual.
And then I'm alarmed by, Ron DeSantis creating this election police task force.
Yes, that's right.
It seems like, he's created a team of jackboots to go in and do his bidding in regards to, whatever he says in regards to what they think about the election, they'll go in and do it. It's, what a time to be alive, Anthony.
What a time. Okay, I'll let you go, but thank you. We look forward to some levity in your show. It's been quite serious in this one today, but I know you will bring some levity, and I'm grateful to you for that. Okay, that's your pal, Hal. He's here in just a moment. I'm Anthony Davis. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. Have yourself a really great